Well, let's talk about the business case for Agile. Well, Agile methods are now a proven model since 2001. Us early adopters, late 90s, early 2000s, started investigating and using these concepts. I've seen Agile projects that deliver working code 2 weeks after the project kickoff. So imagine impressing your customer with 2 weeks later showing them some functional workflow slices of your system. That's pretty impressive. Well, the data now shows about a 30 to 40% type of savings if you're using Agile methods. I do reference a white paper here from my website, www.3beacons.com. That white paper contains 5 different case studies. The companies are IBM, Salesforce.com, OCLC, Intel PBE Group, and Systematic. And then it captures a summary of a recent survey conducted by QSM Associates, sponsored by Rally Software, which actually measured 29 Agile projects compared to 7,500 traditional projects. And honestly, Hemant said I'm passionate about this. I certainly am. The findings of this commissioned project by QSM Associates were quite stunning. It shows that Agile projects, on average, are 37% faster to market. I'm going to repeat that for emphasis. Agile projects, 37% faster to market. It also showed that Agile projects experienced a 16% increase in productivity. And lastly, it showed that Agile projects maintain steady defect rates even when delivering earlier. Those of us that have worked on traditional projects, and we all know when there's pressure to compress the schedule, the defect rate really climbs somewhat exponentially. Well, Agile projects do not experience that same phenomenon. So the rewards are definitely worth it from an Agile business case perspective. Okay, so it poses this big question. Is it possible to effectively combine dual shore outsourcing with Agile methods? And I think before I answer, I'm going to step you through some of the challenges associated with the combination, and then a lot of the best practices that I've noticed over the years. And then at the very end, I'll answer the question. So challenges. I've grouped the challenges of dual shore Agile into 3 main areas. The first area is people, and the second area is information sharing / communication, and the third area is project organization. So let's start by talking about people. Well, trust is the foundation of all Agile teams, but now if your development team is split across an oceanic divide, how in the world do you create the environment of trust within both of those sub-teams? Also, language and culture. Well, chances are you have an agreement with an offshore team that has a different culture, and their primary language is not English. One thing, if you structure an agreement with a team from India, engineers from India are some of the world's best, but you'll have to convince them to speak a little bit slower, especially if you're like me, who is a native Texan. The engineers from China are technically brilliant, but your effective communication rate will be a little bit stilted and maybe in the 50 or 60% range. So you have to be aware that there could be communication difficulties there. Cultural and body language differences will also compound that challenge. And also, dual shore Agile requires some sacrifices and changes to the norm. So how do you equitably split those changes? And how do you create a single team identity such that both sub-teams or multiple sub-teams feel part of the larger team? Well, Agile is all about trust, self-organizing teams, and accountability. So how do we do that? And I hope to answer that as we get into the best practices. Second major challenge, in my opinion, is information sharing, or perhaps a subtopic there would be communication. So let's say now your team is distributed. How do you maintain a high level of collaboration and communication? And there's inherent challenges in that. Obviously, the best projects have a shared project vision. How do you achieve that when your teams are distributed? Management, stakeholders, they certainly like exposure to the project status and the current impediments. Well, if I might interject here, a typical technique in an Agile project is to use a story card board, and that represents a visible physical status representation that anybody can look at to see what the current status is. Well, if your team is distributed or your team is wholly offshore, then how in the world can the stakeholders and customers see the current status? So it's not exactly straightforward or feasible to use something like that. And then also, how does the remote team remain synchronized with the local team, and most importantly with the customer? Well, Agile is all about, originally was all about co-location, collaboration, synchronization, and instant visibility. How in the world can that work when your development team is halfway around the world? And again, I hope to share some insights and some best practices on how that can work. Final challenge here is project organization. Well, Agile Methods introduces at least a couple of new roles. One of the new roles is called a product owner. Ken Schwaber, the inventor of Scrum, likes to call this a single wringable neck. It's the single person responsible for all aspects of the project. Another is the Scrum Master. This is a person responsible for the effective use of the Agile methods and removing impediments as they're raised by the development teams. So how do these roles work in a distributed dual shore Agile model, and where are these roles located? I'll get to those in just a minute. Also, there's some new responsibilities for Agile organizations, such as self-organization, daily stand-up, providing estimates, breaking stories into subtasks, et cetera, et cetera. So how are these new responsibilities impacted when the Agile team is distributed? Additionally, different working hours may be required. So how do you spread that pain and organize those activities? Well, Agile is all about originally an on-site customer, coaches, product owners, and Scrum Masters. So hopefully we'll answer how that works in our best practices section, which starts right now.